everyone, and welcome back to Purple Nuna Podcast. I am here with the Sophia Loren to my Marcello Mastroianni,
Wow.
Savanna Lanausse.
All I've ever wanted.
I was going to compare you
right
to another movie, but I was like, no, I gotta get deeper in the connection, you know? Plus, you and me are big Italian cinema fans, aren't we?
Very true. How are you, Steph?
I'm good. I got some good news and then I got some bad news this week. Good news is I made it into pharmacy school, so woohoo.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing pharmacy school online at LECOM, and it's all online except for like 3 weeks in the summer. I have to go and I have to do labs. That's all. And of course like internships here and there, but those I think those are done in like my hometown. Like I don't have to go out to there to do it, which is nice. And then the other bad thing is I literally gave myself ringworm as a gift.
How did you get that?
So, and no one, like my family, like they checked their bodies, and like I don't go out because I live in Florida. We live in Florida, and stuff still be crazy out there.
Yeah.
Even during COVID, it's always been crazy in Florida. But I don't go out. Like I don't go out. I don't go out into grocery stores. If I do go out, literally it's to do drive-through with anything. Mm-hmm. So no one gave it to me. How I gave it to myself, you ask, which is a very impressive skill because it does take a lot to give you one ringworm and to generate it literally out of midair. Was I fell asleep with damp hair while wearing a hoodie. So the hoodie got really wet and just kind of laid on the nape of my neck for like 12 hours wet. And then like a day later, I was like, I'm a little itchy. And then my mom was like, oh, like, because she saw like, like 3 little spirals. It was very like immaculately placed on my body. It was very weird, but she knew because she's had ringworm before in the past. But I will say the best thing about having ringworm is, and obviously like, let me finish. Because obviously I wouldn't want like ringworm is just kind of get itchy and that's it, and you could give it to other people. And of course I've been cautious and stuff, but like my parents, they're like, oh, like it's ringworm, it's not like it's gonna turn into something greater, blah blah blah. So but I'm still trying to be cautious. So my way of being cautious is anytime my parents or anyone in my family is like, hey, can you do this? Or hey, Steph, can you give me a hand here? I just, by excuses, just going, but I have worms. So I've literally gotten out of doing everything because I've just been like, but I have worms. And even though that's not what ringworm is, and I did, like, my grandma was like, Stephanie, make sure you clean up this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, don't talk to me like that. I'll give you worms. And, like, just going around like an old hag, like an old witch from, like, medieval time, just going, I'll give you worms. So that's been, like, the funnest thing.
I've actually never, like, heard of someone actually getting ringworm from themselves.
Yeah, and we didn't think it was possible either, but we did like a nice Google search and it came up where it's like, oh yeah, like if you're just a moron and if you sleep with wet hair, yeah, you can do that. Because at the end of the day, it's just water. What was that?
But wait. We need to talk about how you slept with wet hair. That's not uncomfortable?
I do not like hair dryers. I have a history with hair dryers because when I was a kid, my mom would blow dry my hair, but she would like put that like stuff on high heat and would just center it on my ear, and I would feel like I'd pass out during hair dryers. So I really do in my adult life do whatever I can. Like I don't blow dry my hair because of those moments.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I used to pass out when my mom used to blow dry my hair. It was just too much heat on like my head, so I'd be like, ugh, and like just go down. And my family always jokes because I would, my mom would be like, okay, just 10 more seconds, and then I immediately start counting, and then after 10 seconds would end, I wouldn't run away, I wouldn't pull away, I'd be like, it's time, as like a little kid, just like feeling this abrasive heat on my face. because my mom has like a high heat tolerance. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is. Like when women get older, they just have a high heat tolerance. Like it's just like how like I used to take cold showers as a kid, but now if my shower isn't boiling my skin off, it ain't good.
No.
So the fact that she just had this blower on my neck and my ear and the side of my face, and I hated the feeling so much, I would pass out something. I passed out twice, but it would make me nauseous every time.
Oh.
But hair dryers, luckily, like when I go to the hair salon, it don't happen. Don't
Well, I
know
mean,
why.
they're like experts, so they know
Well, yeah,
like
I
temperature.
probably don't have like 1,200 watts of heat of a just going right on my neck.
Yeah, no, but you don't wait till it's like dry to go to sleep?
Yes, I do, but the issue was so like it was damp when I went to bed.
Okay.
It wasn't like, when I walked around my room, I left a trail of water behind me. It wasn't that soaking wet. I usually like towel dry it.
Okay.
But like I said, I always wear a hoodie. So because I hate the feeling of wet hair on my neck. So what do? I bunch up a hoodie and like I bunch up like the hood of a sweater, and so that way it doesn't touch my neck. But
Smart.
obviously, I guess that night it was just my hair was just too wet and it got the hoodie too wet. And so I
Mm.
went to sleep. Plus, it was my fault. I washed my hair at like midnight and I was tired and, I just goofed it really.
I get that. I understand.
So yeah, if
Um
anyone out there has long hair, don't do what I did. Unless if you want the right to just go around and go worms and like not have people think you're mentally ill, there's your opportunity.
well, let's not encourage people to get ringworm. Someone's gonna send us a picture and they're like, look, me too, and we'll start a
Well,
wave.
and also it's a coincidence, like, because my dog, my dog Molly, who I call a rat,
Yeah.
she's just a little gross thing. She's cute, but she's a little nasty, a little stinky. Um, but I was petting her yesterday, and I was like, and of course I wash my hands. So I was like, because dogs can get ringworm. But I washed my hands, and I was just petting her and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, and I totally forgot that one of Molly's nickname is Molly Ringworm. So I was like, I just looked at her. I was like, I probably got this from you, Molly Ringworm. And I kind of had just this realization that maybe I did.
Oh no, stop. Don't blame Molly.
She's good. We checked her out. She doesn't have it, but I was just like, whoa, because we had just like we always call her that. So, but no one aside from my mom like 30 years ago has had ringworm. So there's my ringworm story. Hope that didn't upset your tummies at home. And by the way, there's no worms involved. I don't know why they call it ringworm. I used to be so
no.
freaked out by ringworm because I'd be like, oh my God, there's just a worm coiled in the skin. No, I don't have that. It's just itchy. It's just like
Yeah.
evil eczema.
Yeah, I knew that. It's just I haven't heard it in a long time, like someone actually getting it.
And giving it to themselves. Like, let's be honest.
That's a
Quite the
very
accomplishment. So maybe it's not.
Conti.
Maybe it's not a bad thing and a good thing. Maybe it's just a good thing and just a really unique, different thing. It's like now it's like it's gonna go on my resume. It's like I can give myself ringworm. Just like
Yeah, if I need to. Right.
if I need to pull the sick card. Oh, what an amazing sick card! Like like you don't want to go into work and be like, sorry, gave myself ringworm again. Because it is contagious.
Don't put that out on air. Because someone's gonna find it and be like, really? Huh?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get a letter from the school that I just got accepted into. They're gonna be like, you were talking about giving ringworm to people as a way to get off of work? That's not our standard here.
Just a skit, guys. It's just a skit. Don't worry.
It's just I don't have the worms. It's okay. It's all just a bit. But Savanna, so real quickly, how have you been? Everything good?
Yeah.
You watching anything new?
Sorry, that's my dog.
It's okay. Hi, tell Ramos I said hi.
Yeah, I don't know why he's freaking out. It's early, but
It's fine. You hear my mom yelling in the background, or my dog having a conniption too, so you're good.
Well, nothing's really new. I haven't been able to do a lot because my parents are here. But yeah, I'm ending school soon. I have another week, so I'm excited.
Nice.
And then I start again in 2 weeks, I think.
A tiny little break. A
Yeah.
tiny little break, but still a break, you know?
And then I'm excited because I think I'm seeing you next week, and it's been a long
Yeah.
time.
Hopefully. Hopefully, maybe I won't have worms by the time you
Oh,
come
yeah.
over.
I forgot about that. That's another thing we need to worry about now.
The look of my grandma's face when I was like, "Don't test me, I'll give you worms." And my grandma just looked at me like, "I'll shoot you, I don't care. Like, I will end us both right here," was just the funniest reaction. I also got, so another little quickie. I watched The House That Jack Built with my mother.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I warned her. I was like, "This movie's gonna mess you up. Like, this is a crazy movie." She laughed a
Oh my
lot,
god.
and it made me very uncomfortable. And it made me realize, I'm like, "Oh God, this is where I get this mentality from. This is how I can withstand movies like this." But even still, like at the end of the day, with The House That Jack Built, I'm like, "Oof." Like, especially like,
Yeah, you were
scenes
still, like,
involving the
freaked
children. I'm
out.
like, "God, like what?" And like my mom was just laughing at the OCD aspect of him, and was just like, haha, like he's got to go back because he thinks he's crazy. And I'm like, this is terrifying. Why are you laughing?
Your mom is very tough.
Yeah. And then
Very
I was like, what did you think? And she's like, it was good. It was good. Definitely went on acid in the end. And I'm like, was it like the scariest thing you've ever seen? Like in terms of like the concept. And she's like, no.
Oh my
So
god.
I don't know what my mom is
You
watching.
gotta ask her what's the scariest movie she's ever seen. Like,
I
what
think for her, it would be The Exorcist, just because her experience with it as like a kid, because she saw it when she was a kid. So I think maybe a movie like that. It would probably have to be. I feel like everyone's like most scary movie is watched like when they're a kid.
Okay, alright, I could see that, but, like, oh god, The House That Jack Both messed me up very bad. And we have to watch it again at some point because we're gonna talk about it.
Yes. So I am ready, and I also got. I kind of want to. I probably might watch it again within a few weeks, just because I got the director's cut. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what else to expect. But the DVD version that I got is also like, oh yeah, you want the original theatrical cut or the director's cut? Because I just showed my mom the director's cut because I was like, I don't know what's in the director's cut. Good lord. So I just showed her what I already knew, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. I mean, I'm at least expecting it to be rough. I don't expect like a tea party or something small to be in the director's cut.
Hey, look, another opportunity to talk about Lars.
Oh
So
yes. And then I ended up getting more movies, and I looked and I'm like, did I literally just buy Lars's entire, like after everything, did I really go out and just buy like his entire collection?
dude,
Because
as
from
much
the
as we, like,
Criterion sale, I got two, and then from a Warner Brothers sale, I got oh, what's the one with Bjork?
Dancer in the Dark.
Yes, I got that one and getting in the mail soon.
You know, it's funny because as much as we don't, I mean, at least I don't care for him,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're fans in a way. That's very scary for me.
Yeah. It's kind of like, remember what you said with Ari Aster with, was it Ari Aster or, yeah, Ari Aster, where he was like, oh, I want to give a sickness to people and like, I want to infect them. Like, you know how we said that stuff?
Yeah,
I was like, did Lars do that to us?
probably.
Have
I
we
mean,
been Von Triered?
oh god,
Oh man,
what a
realizations have been
problem.
occurring.
But
But luckily, we're not going to be talking today about anything remotely close to Lars von Trier. Luckily or unluckily, depending on how you view it.
yeah. Oh,
But
one more thing.
yeah.
My
What's
my
up?
first Criterion pick for the sale, I got Gilda, so I'm very excited. It's very cute.
What you get?
Gilda.
Ooh, nice,
It's like a bright
nice.
pink DVD, so it was really cute.
That's good. That's real good. I definitely think I'm gonna go back and get some because I really like the movie Tom Popo. We've seen that movie
Oh,
together,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I kind of want to get more movies like that. So I think I might pick up an Ozu film. I'm not entirely too sure yet,
Mhm.
but if you have seen the movie Tom Popo, and if you could recommend any films, because I've just been a good wholesome mood for like a food movie. Food movies
Yeah.
are always good.
Yeah.
So if anyone could recommend a movie like Tom Popo, let me know.
Love it.
Mhm. All right, so today we are going to be talking about a movie and two short films, which seems to be like our new theme is doing a movie and two short films. I personally like it. I like giving attention to short films, especially ones that might have not been heard of. And let's be honest, most short films people don't know about.
Yeah.
So today we're going to first talk about Butter Lamp, and then we're going to talk about a short film called Human Voice. And as well as we're going to dive into the movie In the Mood for Love. And all three of these are available on the Criterion Collection. So let's start talking about Butter Lamp. Butter Lamp is a short film that came out in 2013. I believe it was like 20 minutes. I want to say, yeah, 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a young photographer and his assistant taking photos of Tibetan nomads. Now, it just, that kind of seems very like blah. But what makes this film interesting and different is that these Tibetan nomads are not being taken in front of, their own hometown buildings or,
Yeah.
their own, like they're not taken in front of backgrounds that would represent their culture.
Yes.
They're taken place in like with backdrops of, and like actual like photography backdrops of, I don't know, more like Americana slash standard, what you would go into a Macy's and take photos in front of.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what did you think of Butter Lamp?
At first, I wasn't too sure what was going on. I was just kind of like, this is very strange. And it wasn't until like the end of the film that I think I got what they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were trying to talk about assimilation of these people in society.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of the times with these, and I assume they're a minority group, um, we want them to be forced into our society and to assimilate when really like there is a lot of beauty in their own.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got from the story. There wasn't a lot to obviously base that on, just because there's little to no dialogue. Um, but that's kind of my interpretation of it. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it was a way where kind of like saying like, oh, us whether in a modern society will only view this as significant or only pay attention if it is set to a modern backdrop. Like I think it was more so to a point where it's like, oh, only people will look at these photos if, Disneyland is in the background and you have this
Yeah.
poor little old lady with her prayer wheel and she's just twiddling it. And then there's like a backdrop of her at Disney. And it just obviously it doesn't work. And when they try to put I believe it's like a Tibetan monastery, when they try to put like a picture of it behind, she just immediately gets down and starts praying, and they're like, "Oh no, no, no! Let's change the background." So I think it was more so like maybe like not so much as they're forgotten, but they don't get paid attention to unless it's set, unless they were more modern, unless we viewed them in a modern way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it does have good meaning. I think this could go for a lot of cultures too, not just the one shown in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was good for what it was. I did enjoy seeing the different backgrounds. It was kind of funny to see
Oh
like
my god, the little boy with the cow, with the little tiny cow, was adorable.
yeah, and the grandma was so cute. I was like, oh, grandma. But yeah, I mean, each picture I think told a different story, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed seeing them in it's also very interesting to see them in still their traditional clothes, at least some of them.
Yeah.
And then the background, like you said, be like Disney World or
Or the beach with the single palm tree that was like everyone's desktop background in the early 2000s.
yeah, yeah. So I think they did a good job at showing what they were trying to say, because a lot of like the dialogue is limited, and it's basically was there any cuts in the film? No, right? It was just ongoing, or it looked like that at least.
It looked like it was ongoing at least. Yeah, cuz it doesn't look like they really changed angles from what I recall. It just looked like the camera was in the same position. There definitely was no angle cutting or any transitions of any kind. The only thing would have been like at the end when they remove the banner and you actually see like the full background, which let me ask you about that background. It looked like obviously like you had like the beautiful mountains and everything like that, and this film was shot in Tibet. But one thing I thought was weird, maybe now I'm kind of realizing it. There was like I don't know if it was like the deterioration or the formation of a highway because you
Oh, there
saw
was?
those little structures. So I was at first I was like, what was those? But as I'm like looking back at the image, I'm like, I think that was like the construction of like a highway.
Interesting.
So I definitely think you hit it on the nail though with assimilation. And do you actually know what a butter lamp is?
I do not.
It is literally a light, like a candle, that is um, held by butter or fat, and it burns for a long time. And essentially, like it means like it brings like a lot of blessings, a lot of good luck, and stuff like that in Tibetan cultures. It's usually like they put it, they use butter lamps in their temples and or churches, monasteries, whatever. I'm not too sure what exactly they call, maybe temples, but yeah, so that is what a butter lamp is.
Very interesting.
I'd also never seen the prayer wheels before. Like I noticed the garments and I've seen like the butter lamps.
Yeah.
I've heard about those, but you know the little things. It almost looked like, I don't know, like a rattle. Like not to be rude or anything, but it
No,
looked
no,
like a
yeah,
rattle,
yeah.
and but it has like inscribed on it a bunch of prayers.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I'd never seen that before.
I've seen similar things to it, but not like a prayer wheel. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? But
Yeah.
yeah, same. Same for the most part.
Okay, what would you give Butter Lamp? What rating?
Um, 9. For what it was going for, I give it a 9.
Okay. I think I'd go 8.6. That resonates well. I definitely think it's a 20-minute short film. I definitely think it's worth everyone to definitely, just try it out and see it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Now,
Definitely
let's
good.
talk about human voice. So, Savannah, can you give us a little synopsis on human voice?
Yeah, so Human Voice came out in 2014 and it was directed by Eduardo Ponti. Um, and it's based on a one woman play actually, and
Mhm.
it's set in I think 1950s Italy, and it's a drama about this woman, and she is basically talking to her I'm gonna say boyfriend, lover on the phone, and they're breaking up. It's
Yeah.
like the last time they're ever gonna talk. And it stars Sophia Loren, Queen, and Enrico Laverso as the man on the phone.
Mhm.
And what did you think of it?
So I was incredibly impressed. I've always thought Sophia Loren is this iconic actress, but I will be quite frank, I've never seen a lot of her work. I've seen more like her work in like Italian cinema and stuff like that. And I've always thought she was a good actress, but really watching this made me realize how much of a great actress she is. You have a favorite movie of hers that I've never seen, and I think that might be, I would say, I think you've considered it like her best acting. I believe it was Three Women.
Yes. Two
But
women.
two women. But yeah, I was incredibly floored by her acting, and I love this representation of the loss of love when you are older. Because Sophia
Yeah.
Loren, I don't know if her character was supposed to be the same age as her, but the fact that this woman is losing her boyfriend at an old age, like, and it's a breakup, not like a loss or anything, like a breakup, it kind of gives much more severity, because it's not like you have the excuse of saying, oh, you're young, you'll find someone else. Like, I can imagine how heavy of a heart Sophia Loren's character would have
Yeah.
in this situation, especially the fact that she is an old woman going through a big breakup, not some young woman who has another 50 years to live. What did you
Yeah.
think as a Sophia Loren fan?
She hasn't lost it. I was a little worried when, like, at first I was excited because I'm like, oh, my favorite person. But then I'm kind of like, well, she's older now, so maybe, like, it's not going to be as good as what I know her.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, she's still got it. She's still
I
good.
literally wrote she has amazing legs.
No, she looks fantastic for
She looks
85.
amazing. Oh my, 85?
Yeah, she's old. She's older.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. One thing I was confused because I don't know Italian, but I was very confused with the dialect because I know like hello to be ciao. I
yeah.
was surprised that she was going pronto, which in at least from what I've grown up in my whatever my family's dialect is, I don't even know because they really don't speak Italian. They're New York Italian. But pronto is like fast, like come up, like speed, get here. So I was surprised every time she like said hello, it was pronto. So I was like, what?
Yeah, so my grandparents are from Italy, and she's from the same area my grandpa was from. And I think I want to say she's from either Naples or Rome,
Mm-hmm.
one of those. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that much either. Because my grandparents, for some reason, they say ciao. They don't say that, but
Yeah, because she said that she had a Neapolitan accent in the film, but when she kept saying pronto, pronto, I was like, I know that to be something entirely different. So, yeah, that was just something that I was like, huh,
yeah,
different.
for
Um,
sure.
Also, the director, do you know about the director of this film?
Yeah, it's her little boy.
It's her son, her little baby boy.
Good for him putting his mom in movies.
And
Proud dad.
really good directing. Like
Yeah.
I don't think he's made any like blockbusters or anything
No,
too
no.
crazy. His father was a director.
Yeah.
Father was a director, Carlo Ponti.
Mhm.
But I was very surprised. I wasn't expecting, and honestly, out of all three films we're going to talk about, not to spoil anything, Human Voice was definitely my favorite. I thought it was the most well-rounded and had so much power for it being only a 35-minute short film.
I agree. The one thing I did want to point out is this has also been done before and after. For example, Ingrid Bergman did this movie at one point.
Was it a short film or was it like a full-length feature for her?
Ooh, I don't know, but when I was looking up A Human Voice on IMDb, I did come across that there were a few. So it wasn't anything I could give him uh, like credit for in terms of storyline. I'm sure he did things that were different, and I do want to talk about that. But yeah, no, and then someone did it again in 2019, and Ingrid Bergman did it when she was older as well. And
Wow.
yeah, so I do think this is about an older woman, and like you said, like I really like that because we also don't get to see a lot of movies with older love in it, like what happens to people when they're older, and unless it's like a comedy, I've seen those where it's like
Mhm.
an older woman trying to find love, but we don't see a lot of dramas.
Yeah, but I definitely think I don't know. I feel like with something like this, depending on the director and actress, this is something that is meant to be done. It's a monologue. It's meant to be done over and over again,
Yeah.
but each time it's different. So I'm sure yeah, I'm looking up the Ingrid Bergman one right now and that is a monologue as well. It's a little bit it's not it's I would say it's a movie cuz it is like 50 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, I think even though it has been done, I'm sure with something like this, everyone plays into their own strengths and weaknesses.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
if this
Um,
was like a full hour and 20 and it was done over and over again, I'd say it's an issue. But because majority of it is under an hour, I think this is replicating it is okay. As long as you have a director that kind of wants to reinvent it every time.
Yeah, and I think something he probably does that's original is the flashback sequences where you see this couple back and forth when she's on the phone and it's them when they were together and they even show a bit where she's going to his house
Hmm.
and she sees a woman coming out of it. Um so I thought that was great, but something I did want to bring up is I didn't know what was going on for
In
a
terms
while.
of what? In the end?
So I didn't know if she was actually talking to somebody or if she was going crazy. Because
No,
the thing that came to mind was like, oh, she's older. And I thought maybe the guy died and but then I realized I was like, no, because the phone is ringing a lot of times. It's not her
yeah.
imagination. So I was a little like, huh, like I wonder if they're trying to trick me. Um, but after a while I did understand. I'm like, oh no, they're breaking up. That's really
Oh,
sad.
that would be so sad though if she was just on the phone and it was like, no, you're now talking to him. Your lover's been dead for 10 years. That would be horrifying.
Well, I kind of also get that feeling because her housekeeper was kind of like, oh, like here she goes again. But then I realized I'm like, well, maybe she calls him a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely still think that it is a possibility. Very interesting theory.
I
Um,
mean, the reason I stopped thinking that is because of a lot of things in the movie, and also when you read the synopsis, it says she's going through a breakup. So I was like, oh,
yes.
okay, well, at
Now,
least I
my
know what's
my
going on.
question was why was there cuz when her I don't know if it was a maid. I'm going to assume she was a maid or her housekeeper. Her housekeeper was leaving. She left two plates. Why did she leave two plates? Because she
Well,
set up two places. So
yeah,
was the boyfriend supposed to come over at some point?
yeah, I think that was because in the beginning she talks about like, oh, like make whatever because he likes it and it's Sunday. So I do think that like I maybe the housekeeper knew he wasn't coming because she kind of had this attitude the whole time, like, okay.
Yeah.
But I do think it was sort of like a tradition for them to meet up and then yeah, he didn't come.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, so what do you give what's the rating for you?
I have to give it a 10 because of Sophia Loren, number 4.
I I definitely would give it a 10 too, not only because of the directing, but it was incredibly impressive acting. Especially like the moments where you would see her kind of turn in an instant and realize like she would realize the truth. Um there's this also this one part where like she's like saying like on the phone like in the beginning she's like, "Oh, I'm strong. Like I'm fine. Like it is what it is," type of thing, and you can just kind of like see the pain in her eyes and everything, and I thought
Yeah.
it was an amazing performance by her. Definitely god, like I love the fact that she's still like acting, at her age and is working with her son. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, she was younger in that movie too because
Yeah, that was oh, if you want to play devil's advocate, that was almost 10 years ago if you really think about it.
yeah, so I haven't seen her in a while after that. I actually no, I think she's doing something else actually. I
She
think
does a lot of like she still does a lot of commercials. And I'm still a figure for Dolce and Gabbana. So she's done like makeup for them and I've seen her do commercials still for them, but in terms of like actual movies, I don't think she's done anything big, but I absolutely could be wrong.
she's so great. Love her, queen.
All right, are you ready to dive into in the mood for love?
Yes, I am.
All right, so In the Mood for Love is a 2000 film written and directed by Wong Kar-Wai, which very weird on IMDb. It says his name is Kar-Wai Wong.
Oh, is that wrong?
I've always thought it to be Wong Kar-Wai.
I don't know.
So I'm going to just stick with Wong Kar-Wai if I'm wrong or if there's a reason why it's been reversed because it does say Wong Kar-Wai in the film. And when I learned about it in my Hong Kong cinema course that
Yeah.
it's Wong Kar-Wai. So if I'm wrong, please let me know because on IMDb I just never seen it until I saw on IMDb that it's labeled as Kar-Wai Wong, not Wong Kar-Wai.
Okay.
So yeah, so In the Mood for Love, it stars Maggie Chung and Tony, and I could be botching this, Tony Chi Wei Long, and it is two neighbors, a woman and a man, form a strong bond after both suspects' extramarital activities of their spouses. However, they agree to keep their bond platonic so not to commit similar wrongs. So Savannah, starting off, what did you think of this movie?
So this was my pick because I've heard a lot of like raving about this film. And I've also haven't got into Hong Kong like film cinema. So I was like, "Oh, this is such a great start. Like let me get into this." I know you and me have a very similar opinion. So do you want to get into the positives or the negatives first?
I say let's talk about the positives of this film first. Let's talk about the positives. So, for me, the directing.
Yeah.
I thought the directing, although I kind of feel because we kind of briefly discussed how we felt about this.
Yeah.
I do think the directing is one of the best things about this film. The
Yeah.
directing and along with the music. And I do have to say how incredibly impressive it is
Mhm.
that Wong Kar-Wai has been able to create this 1960s time capsule.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the fashion, her clothes to
Everything. And like it's just because even the look, the feel, the tempo, everything of this film reminds me more of almost either French or Italian drama
Yeah.
from the 60s rather than a more modern Hong Kong film. So I was incredibly impressed with how it just seems that Wong Kar-wai really just encapsulated the 60s and 60 type films within this movie, while and still being entirely different from anything that I've really seen. Um, I also think that the main focus of the storyline and the fact that at the end of the day where these two people know what's being done to them, they refuse to go to the same levels as their partners. They refuse to
Yeah.
go down to that same level, which I think is incredibly smart, because all the other films that you've seen that kind of even can relate to this somehow, they always go beneath the surface and they always end up resorting to cheating or leaving the spouses or whatever. So I thought this was a very interesting take on a romance film. What I guess in terms of story, what did you think of the story?
I really like the concept of it. Like you said, we don't see a lot of movies that explore another version of like the cheating story. And I like the build up almost. And my favorite part of the whole movie is when they're sitting in a restaurant and they sort of reveal to each other like, "Yeah, I know your husband is cheating with my wife." And they do it in a very subtle way.
Hmm.
Like that he asks where she bought her purse and she asks where he got his tie and they both say, "Well, my husband has a tie like that and my wife has a purse like that." And they sort of
Hmm.
come to this realization like, "Oh my god, like ooh." I think the best way to describe this movie though is subtle. He takes a very subtle approach to an affair almost, because we don't even really find out that they had an affair. Like it's not this big explosive thing that we're used to.
Yeah.
Um the I believe Mr. Chan finds out that his wife is
Hmm.
having an affair because she's never home, she's very late, and we see it in little bits, and then a man comes to him and he's like, "Yeah, I saw her with the guy," and he's kind of like storms off. And same with the woman, he's always gone. Same with
Hmm.
Mrs. Chow. Um
So reverse. It is
oh, I'm
Mrs.
sorry.
Chan and Mr. Chow.
Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
So yeah, their dynamic and their relationship is very unique and I appreciated that. I
Hmm.
appreciated um that part of the movie and I like that the movie doesn't spoon feed you that information because I feel like a lot of the times with breakup films and affair films like sometimes we even see them in the affair or like they straight up say like, "Oh, I'm having an affair." So I like that this
Yeah.
director took a very different approach to that. And it's a relationship that's built on trauma,
Yeah.
which is interesting. What did you
And
think of that?
mutuality, like in terms of like a connection, because these and it's I think they both kind of realize at one point that the partner who they are with is who they settled for. And if they had waited, they could have found each other, which would have been an almost near perfect match. I mean, like, they got along so well, they enjoyed spending time together, and they think similarly, and even to the point where even their hobby they shared, and liked working on together. It just seems so perfect.
Yeah.
Um, I also one thing that I thought was interesting was how a lot they kind of pretended to be each other's spouses, and they would go
Yeah.
through rehearsals. I thought that was interesting because it felt more of like a way for them to act like a couple but with an excuse.
Oh, that's really good.
Because what the rehearsals weren't, in my opinion, necessary.
Yeah.
They didn't need to rehearse anything. It's not like they had been caught. They acted like they had been caught in a lie. Meanwhile, they were never cheating on each other. Like they never went to that extent. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could say that there was a deeper level of like emotional cheating, but definitely not compared to what their spouses were doing.
Well,
Um,
there is a
it,
debate about the end, though. And do you want to get into that now or later?
ooh, ooh. Let's get into it later. Let's save the end for the
Because
end.
there's a debate about what happened, and it's very interesting. But something I can talk about now, and I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Do
yeah, yeah.
you think this is something I was thinking of when I was watching this. Do you think their kind of relationship can be organic though? And I know you actually made some really good points about like their hobbies and like they think alike, and you kind of changed my mind a little bit. But one of the questions I had is they kind of are doing this out of necessity too, because technically now like they do need each other because
Yeah, I mean, with everything going on, I do not think it could work organically. Why? Because of what I was saying before.
um,
Because they acted like they had done something wrong. It looked like they had carried some kind of guilt. Like I said, with the
interesting.
rehearsals, that wouldn't have been necessary for them. What would have been necessary is figuring out how they were cheating, rather, and then where they would like. It was just weird how the rehearsals were laid out, even though that they were saying that they were trying to like practicing how they would find out that their partners were cheating. It felt like it carried more of a guilt towards them, as if they
Absolutely.
had done something wrong. So I think because of that, even if like they went to their spouses and broke things off and everything, I don't think it would have worked. Not only because of the way that the fact that their relationship was founded on pain and on a
Yeah.
mutual pain, but the fact that during the times you know, there was a lot of gossip. And I think everything that is done in secrecy and everything is to avoid that gossip. Not so much as to not be labeled as a couple or not be labeled as together, but to not be seen by, you know, their tenants, their the people who live in the same building as them and such like that. Um
Yeah. Um, so another thing that I didn't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand about the movie, I did not get their financial status at all. Because of a few things. I didn't understand. No, like, and it was very strange to me because they seemed to have very good jobs, but they were essentially like living in an apartment with like a few people. So I didn't
I did notice
understand that.
that. I wondered that too. I really wondered that. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was Hong Kong in the 60s. This is where it's set.
And
I
it's the 60s, so I know there was a lot of housewives. And we see both of these women working, so I was thinking maybe they weren't well off. But there she is every day pulling a new look, slaying, and then he's out here traveling. So I didn't understand like why they had to live in this building.
Yeah, I truly thought of that. I was like, they seem very well off for their housing and everything. They seemed a little bit more. I think it might have been before, because really, in terms of Hong Kong being established as, and this is just recollecting from what I learned. I'm not a Hong Kong, you know, national history expert. Um, but I think it was before their civilization reached a huge boom. I really think their boom was more in the late 60s, early 70s. Um, and I think in the 60s, it was just in terms of it becoming a more modern society, it was just booming. So I wondered, I was like, maybe their apartment for that time is actually well living, you know, it's good. But
Maybe.
then, I mean, yeah, it definitely it did made me wonder. And then I think also maybe for their situation, especially Mrs. Chan and her husband, maybe because her husband was always traveling and stuff, maybe it just wasn't worth getting a house, getting a bigger place to live, especially since they didn't have kids.
No, yeah, and I agree. I think what you're saying is probably what happened. I was just sort of like, that's a little bit of a, for me, I don't know if that was just used for the story.
And then also, what are their ages? Although they do look older to us, they could be in their early 20s.
They didn't have kids.
They didn't
So
have kids, so they could have been in their early 20s, kind of like more so like a newlywed status, because they never really disclosed how long they had been married. So maybe it could have been like that you typical and I'm just kind of basing it off like Atomic Family type of stuff, where it could have been that typical leeway of transition from going from married and then moving out of the apartment into a house and then starting a family. So maybe they were just in that little transition zone.
That could be it. Yeah.
We got to talk about the soundtrack. We got to talk about that
The
soundtrack.
theme. Yeah.
That theme was astounding. And I love the way it was used, kind of how it was frozen, like it kind of froze time. When it got like almost not so much slow motion, but like as soon as that music came up, what do you think? What in your opinion, what did it mean to a scene when that music came on?
For me, it kind of like I thought it was sort of like an indicator that their relationship was getting deeper
Mm-hmm.
because I only heard it when they were together or like in a moment where it was serious. So I was like, ooh, is that like telling us like they're getting too deep or something? So I kind of took it as like a sticker almost like okay like here they're getting in deeper, here they're getting in deeper. So I like the soundtrack and I like the placement of the soundtrack a lot, that at least that one song.
Yeah, it was just stunning, and I do think similarly. For me, I thought it was like moments where they've had butterflies in their stomach, and
Aw.
because a lot of the times where it would just focus on the girl, so I wondered if it was looking at her from the man's perspective, or like things like that, because it definitely carried more of like a lot of shots felt more like surveillance than actually telling a story. Like it's just kind of like more of observing a character from afar, almost as if you would like when you were falling for someone. So I thought it maybe meant like the opposite person looking and like just kind of overwhelmed, like having the butterflies and all that stuff.
Sweet. That was really cute.
Now I think we should get into our negatives of the film,
Yeah.
because although I will say I do think this is a good film
It is. It's a good
and I
movie.
would recommend it to people, but I think this film feels way longer
Oh my
than what it
god.
is. It took me 2 days to watch. And there's nothing wrong with having long films, but the pacing and at points it just felt a little too repetitive.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There wasn't, and I pinpoint why I was because I told Stephanie last night that I was a little disappointed with the movie because I had such high hopes for it. It's a good film, but I definitely was expecting more.
Mhm.
Where there wasn't a lot going on for what essentially was a double affair. That's how I felt, and I wasn't expecting this big blowout or anything because I did notice in the beginning of the movie I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be more of a subtle situation. But even with the subtlety, it nothing essentially happened.
Yeah, and I felt that way too. After a point, I kind of felt I was like I feel like I'm rewatching the same scene. Definitely in the middle. There's this, and I don't know if it's maybe to convey the these two characters just kind of in their own element thinking about what they've done and how if they could change the past what they would do, but at just a certain point it was just too much for me in terms of it like I said, it was just it dragged, and it almost in a way because it did drag for me, it definitely took away a lot of, it kind of brought all the good that I liked about this film down a notch, because I was like, okay, like I like this element, but I didn't want to see it like 4 times in the movie.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem. Um, just because we don't really see their relationship, like we see this relationship develop, but we don't see it grow. And more importantly, we don't see it end. And I think that's a big disadvantage to the movie. Um,
Yeah, it really just jumps time at one point, like without really any further explanation. And it kind of, I feel like it takes away from what was invested in this movie,
yeah,
because it just kind of was like, oh, you thought, like, like it just kind of was all like a tease, which I do understand, like in a scenario, like it might have not worked out, but it kind of felt like in the end, everything that had happened in the film was undone to an unnecessary level.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, I think I agree with what you said in particular, like, we didn't need to see everything, and I do feel like I do think the director was trying to go more subtle, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate a lot of the aspects of the film, but we got 0 closure, like,
And I think
nothing.
also the fact that in the end these characters never grew, they never learn, it's upsetting. At least like if they didn't end up together, I guess you could say that Mr. Chow, he kind of grew and he kind of learned something, but in the end it just felt like after all of that effort, not a lot was obtained per either character, and that it just kind of was like, oh well, and they really didn't learn much from it, especially Mrs. Chang, because she doesn't act super phased by her new life in the end.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I do think, like, they they didn't do a good job at telling us what exactly happens to them. I mean, we see it, but we don't know how they were affected emotionally. We don't know how anything ends. They didn't even, like, hint to it. I feel like he could have done it in a subtle way.
I
It could
have
have
a
been
theory. I have a theory.
is it the
So,
famous theory? Because there's a theory going around.
so
There's a little hint.
it's in the end, my theory, I don't know what your theory is, but my theory is in the end, when you see Mrs. Chang, sorry, with her child and her family and stuff, and you see Mr. Chow once again at like almost like a Tibetan monastery, like a Tibetan ruin, and you see him kind of go to the wall and almost whisper to the wall. And I'm wondering if maybe that was his way of going into the past and wishing what he had said was said. Because instead of,
Oh,
he couldn't go to her or anything like that, instead he went to a ruin and almost and spoke into the past.
that would make sense about why that scene was there. That's a good
What's your
theory.
theory?
Well, there's a theory that that kid is Mr. Chan's.
Mm,
And I think that's true,
it
personally,
could be. I think it could be.
because I think if she would have had a kid with her husband, part of me thinks she would have stayed. And I think her having a kid with another man was sort of like her push out. Her
Yeah,
like,
or
I have
it
an
could
excuse to
be.
leave now.
Yeah, I mean, or it could be because at that point, though, if it was his kid, she would have gone with him.
Oh,
He had no ties.
oh, that's true, but maybe they still were keeping their pact. Because I mean,
Hmm.
I guess at the end of the day, like, even if they got together, they're still getting together with their significant other's lover. So I don't know if they were really just not having it
Hmm.
or what. I don't know. There's a lot of things, and I feel like without that closure, we don't need to know everything. I get like the ambiguity, the what he was trying to do with ambiguity.
Yeah.
Is that a
Yeah.
word? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good. I was like, that didn't sound right coming out of my
No, you're
mouth.
good.
I get what he was trying to go for, but at the end of the day, we don't know. We saw this relationship grow, and we I assume it didn't work out. I assume they went their separate ways, and she possibly has a son. Maybe she doesn't have it with him. Maybe it's with her husband. We don't really know anything. And I think I would have liked at least maybe a hint. Just like a hint.
Yeah, I definitely think we could have been given a little bit more from this film. And I think in like some cases we were fed too much, in other cases we were fed too little with aspects of this film.
Yeah.
I do want to say though that one of the reasons why, because I realized something, because there was one scene that spoke out to my memory, and I went back and I watched it, and I really realized how, even though there are some flaws to this movie, in my personal opinion, it's not so much as flaws, it's just more of a disagreement. Like I wouldn't have done it that way. Um, because I don't think the film is bad in any sense of the way. I think in terms of a modern romance, it is still 10 times better than what we have seen in the past 20 years, essentially. Um, but one of the things I thought was crazy good, and it stood out to me, was there's a point where Mrs. Chang, Mr. Chow, they are at a table with their significant others. Do you remember this in the beginning? I believe
Yeah.
they were playing mahjong or a game, a table game.
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
It is in that scene in the beginning. We already knew entirely what was going to happen because what happens is that Mrs. Chang, his the wife of Mr. Chow comes in. Mrs. Chang gets up, sits back down. Mr. Chow leaves the room with like a little brief encounter with a little look between him and Mrs. Chang. But
Ooh.
Mrs. Chang stays in the room with her husband. And I
Yeah.
think that shows that she stood and went with her husband and stayed with him, whereas he went on his own. So I really thought that scene was just kind of like to give us a taste of what was going to happen before we even knew it.
Yeah. That's a good find.
Also, just a great, oh, and that music, oh, I love that song. I've been listening to it nonstop. And normally I don't like when a song like that gets repetitive, but I truly felt with choosing like just a single theme like that and having it play over and over again, it kind of evolved every time you listen to it. It invoked a certain feeling every other time you listen to it, and it changed as the characters changed. So I thought that like using that song was a brilliant choice, and also just the film is immaculate looking in
Yeah,
terms
it's
of the
beautiful.
way a romance film looks. That is entirely what it should look like. I
Yeah.
think if you're going to direct a romance film, if you have a goal to reach, it's definitely in the mood for love level in terms of directing. Um, and once again, I really, really did enjoy the movie. I think it's different. However, there are some things about this film that were just a little too repetitive in my taste.
Mm.
And there could have been definitely more clarity for the viewer.
Yeah. Agreed. What score do you give it?
I'm feeling 7.5.
Oh, same. That's exactly the number I had in my head.
7.5 because I do think it's good. And I am not in any way a romance film lover. I just like if you're like, here's this Nicholas Spark film, I do a big ol' eye roll. I do not like romance films. I don't care for it. I don't care for
None
them.
of them?
You ask me, Last Tango in Paris is top tier. All of my
Stephanie.
favorite romance films involves death of
And
some kind, of
abuse.
some significance. Last Tango in Paris, Great Gatsby, Moulin Rouge, like all of them have to have a death. So for me, like, and I really don't like if those are like the three romance films I actually enjoy. Don't give me like My Sister's Keeper. Don't give me that's not
No,
a
no,
romance
no.
film. That's not a
Oh
romance
God,
film.
wait.
I was thinking The Time Traveler's Wife. Don't give me that stuff. It's just it ain't for me. It's not
Okay.
my thing.
So
But this is definitely in terms of romance films, I'd say within my top 5 still because I don't like them often. But when I do, it be like this.
so I'm not so opposed to them. They're not my favorite, and it's probably not the first thing I would watch. But I have a few guilty pleasures that I enjoy from time to time. I like About Time. I like 500 Days of Summer. Um, and I like a few others. So I'm not as hard on them as Steph, but I I would agree with Stephanie. This is top tier for romance.
For romance. It's definitely a tough category to like hit. I would say for me, like top 5 would like just so you understand where I live in the romance genre. Last Tango in
Oh
Paris,
God,
Great Gatsby,
that's a good one.
Hiroshima Mon Amour,
Cute. That's a good movie.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World,
Oh,
and then In the Mood for Love.
that's not a.
Do not tell me Scott Pilgrim is not a romance film. I will throw hands through the
It's like
dark web.
okay. I'll say it's a rom com.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I'm not even a rom-com person.
No,
But
I'm not
though
either. I think they're corny.
but this is definitely top tier in terms of the genre. In terms of movies in general, I can see why people like it so much. There definitely is a lot to love about this movie. Um but as a general movie, it's good, but it could have been more. As a romance film, top tier.
I
Top tier.
I think that's accurate. That's very accurate.
But yeah, so what are we gonna be talking about next time?
Ooh,
I'm
okay.
trying to remember
Let
our
me pull up my
schedule.
list. Let me pull up my list.
Pull up the list.
The Purple Noon. Where is it? Uh, where is it?
So it's your so I think next because we did 24 frames, then it's your pick, and then next should be Criterion, another Criterion film.
Hmm. We did 24. So the next criterion I know for short film is 24 hours within the life of a clown.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So that one is I did like a little I did a French, a little French mix up. So essentially, what's going to be in the next one is 24 hours in the life of a clown, which is a oh my god, was it Jean Pierre Melville? It is a Jean Pierre Melville film, and that's a short film.
Mm.
That was in alphabetical on the Criterion, but we're going to be pairing it with another short film. Can't recall the name, but we're going to be pairing it with the movie Une Flique.
Un fleek.
Une Flique.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's an Elaine Delon.
Yeah. I had to put that in there, especially like since we were talking about Jean Pierre Melville. Because, is it Jean Pierre Melville?
I think you're
I
right.
think
It's Jean
so. I
Pierre
think so.
something.
It's Jean. It's a Jean. It's one of the Jeans.
Yes.
But yeah, because we're gonna talk about Les Samurai at one point, but I was like, you know what? Let's throw in the mix. Add an Une Flique.
Un fleek.
I think that was a Criterion, but I believe it's out of stock now.
Is it really?
I think so. It's one of the ones that like went out of stock a few years ago. It's either no, I'm thinking of Les Cicares Rouges. Do you like my French accent?
I do.
All
Oh
right,
my
so next
God.
time you hear us, we'll be talking about some Jean-Pierre Melville, and I could so be wrong. It could be another Jean, but Jean-Pierre for now, Jean-Pierre Melville films. But yeah, if as always, shout out to Homeboy James, and you know what? Shout out to Sensei. Shout
Sensei
out to Sensei,
David, we miss
Sensei David.
you.
But yeah, if you want to know how you can get a snazzy little nickname, links to support us are down below. And until next time, see ya.
Bye.